the news is about job loss and more job cuts to come, many people will be too fearful to leverage and commit a big purchase. You gave a lot of examples of fake good news to rekindle FOMO.
For real estate, they feel that you should not pay down your debt, for HDB especially. However, for private housing, you should pay off your housing loan no matter what to reduce your effective interest rates.
This year was awesome, the stock market.
Yeah, everything rose, right?
Apple, let's go.
Apple
Yeah, make some money in Apple.
Awesome.
Do you all invest mainly in overseas or Singapore?
Only US stock market.
Only
No
US?
Singapore stock
No
market.
Singapore?
This is my
Have you heard of
personal
this thing
life,
called the
personal.
volume effect? Because Singapore stock market has no volume effect. Okay, let's chat on the latest news. And maybe Joanne, share with us your perspective on why Jayden did so well. 88%, 368 units, and an average 245 PSF. You know, actually, what's the highest PSF? That time you mentioned
2.8 PSF.
2.8 for smaller units.
No, as in 2.8 is for the one bedder also, like for really high floor.
Right. Okay, Joanne, what's your thought process about this? Why did this project suddenly do so well? Because like the previous projects before this, they start to average at about 40-50%. Yeah. Then what happened here?
I think the demographic of buyers, firstly, in the West is quite different. Before Jayden came out, of course, the previous new launch was the one at Lakeside, Lake Garden Residences. But this one, Jayden actually sort of outperformed it. Couple of reasons. Firstly, I think in terms of the location itself, it is also nestled at Rong East, and Rong East, of course, is the interchange. Currently, it's the interchange of 2 lines. In future, it will be a interchange of 3 lines. And I think this is quite a common phenomenon where we see projects which are located very near MRT. And what's more, this is an interchange performing very, very well. I think that's first thing. Second thing is, I think it's also the behavioral pattern of buyers whereby they like to, or they are more comfortable, more inclined to be buying into an area that they are very familiar with. And that's why it's not surprising to learn that a lot of the buyers of Jayden are actually people who, you know, have stayed in the West or used to stay in the West. And now that a new project and a new sort of fresh supply in the market has come up, a chance for them to grab, a lot of them then decided to enter in as well. So I coming from someone who has also stayed in the West before.
Which part?
Jurong area
Oh,
in the
okay.
West. Yeah.
Until-
I mean, my schools
He needs to
were
know
all at,
your street. Your
Until
block,
how old?
I mean, my
your-
schools were all at
condo.
Clementi and all that.
Right.
Yeah, until I got married.
Oh,
basically.
okay.
Yeah. So I think that it is a very comfortable enclave.
Okay.
A lot of amenities because it's a mature estate. So there's a lot of amenities around. I mean, the neighborhoods and the districts and the community services are already all developed. The markets are huge. A lot of, let's say our parents' generation and all that, they love basically the amenities and conveniences right over there. So not surprising. But of course, I think in terms of pricing wise, of course, I do agree in today's context, some of the PSF, especially when you're going above 2005, that might put you in a situation where you are buying in at one of the highest PSF in terms of new launches in an OCR area. So I think that is something that buyers should take note. Of course, I believe it is still an investable product. If let's say your time horizon is not a short-term one, meaning 3 to 4 years, you are planning to exit and then you want to make that 300, 400 PSF gain. I think if you're in for the long-term gain, there's going to be a lot of master plan transformation in that area. And I think if a buyer buying in for own stay, you love the area, you're comfortable because your whole family, I mean, all your relatives are all there, you grew up there, you are very familiar with the whole estate. I think it still makes sense to buy into it as well. And generally, in the West part, there's just not a lot of fresh supply, new supply in the market. A lot of times the new supply are always towards, let's say, the eastern side, northeast or central side. The western side, especially when we're talking about the more extreme west, you don't really see a lot of very frequent new launches happening in the area, which is why I think whenever there's a new launch coming out, then it spurs a whole round of interest again.
A lot of pen up and
Yeah.
right. And the surprising thing is that close to 60% are age 40 and below in terms of buyers profile. 99% are Singaporeans and PR. What are your thoughts on this, Rong?
Okay, every time we see a launch that over in a period like 8 to 10 years, there is no launch in that area, it is very normal to achieve this kind of result because there's a lot of pent-up demand for new products in the region. So the last one was J Gateway 10 years ago. If we see Amor Residences, when it was launched, 97%, that was in Ang Mo Kio. The first Lentor project, Lentor Modern, did 84%. But of course, these are all 300 plus size kind of unit type. So hence the percentage might sway to think that hey, there's actually a lot of units that are being moved. So I think for something that is a 10-year pent-up demand, to move 88% of the units, I think like that is a pretty good number. If let's say for example, this is like a 1,000 unit kind of project, obviously it will not hit 88%. So for example, Lorong Chuan will be a very anticipated site coming up next year. They have 900 plus over units. Also strong pent-up demand, and of course it's not going to achieve this kind of percentage. So, but of course there are like two of my clients that wanted to look at Jayden, but they are investor clients, so I told them don't buy lah. So as in like from an investment attribute for like a 5-year horizon. But I think when I went to the show flat, the layout is fantastic, very, very comfortable to stay. Room size are huge. 1141 square feet for their smallest 3-bedder. Views are awesome. Great transformation plan. So long-term hold, like Joanne, like what Joanne mentioned, if you are going to stay there because you're going to sell 10, 15 years later, then it will make sense for you, but not for like those like 3 to 5 years holding period.
I think if you are looking at pent-up demand, I think we can also contrast it to Hillock Green, right, which is the third project that was launched at the Lentor area. So something in contrast to that. So when the first, Lentor Modern was launched, there was also about, I think 80-90%. And then the second project, there was a 50% uptake, right? And then subsequently, there's about, I think, close to 30% for Hillock Green. So not saying that it's not a good project or it's not being welcomed, but just that it speaks to that pent-up demand, right? So like things like projects like Amor Residences, 98% because of the 10-year pent-up demand, and also similarly for I think Jayden now. Yeah.
How do you view this part whereby if you look at Hillock Green, right? The total transformation at Lentor, do you think that, in future there'll be too many projects there? How do you view like the Lentor area?
So of course, like I think like usually I think it's good to have like multiple land plots, because usually if you have multiple land plots, it means that there's potential chance for future land plots to prop up our pricing. Of course, there will be another camp that thinks that because there are so many land plots, maybe the land bid price will actually come down. So my first mover advantage will not be there. So I think the government has also been quite clever. So far, 5 plots are being sold. Every half a year, there is one Lentor plot that comes out. And I think if I'm going into Lentor area, I'll ask myself, today, next time when it comes to resale market, right, what is my unique positioning? And I mentioned that to a lot of my clients, they want to go for like the Lentor area. I say like Lentor Modern is integrated development, so it appeals to people who want the most convenience. Lentor Hill Residences will be a good size project for people who still want to be within 1 kilometers of St. Nicholas. So like Hillock Green will be something that is like you don't have a very strong unit positioning, it's out of 1 kilometers. However, it is one of the closer plots towards the MRT station and shopping mall that is sheltered. So assume that even if pricing stays the same, for future land plots or pricing actually goes up, your differentiation will be that like future buyers can enter at the same price but with the closer kind of distance to MRT station. So that could be Hillock Green's positioning.
Rong, let's visit the part that just now you mentioned you advise your client not to buy Jayden if it's for investment, right? What are some of your key viewpoints on that?
Okay, so Hello, Joanne. No problem.
It's okay.
You're the first person whose handphone ring during NOTG. But then this one editor will cut. It's okay. So I think for Jayden wise, I think
that's the stockbroker calling her to cash out from her dividend play.
Stockbroker, no, I DIY.
She's sitting on.
Okay, sorry, Rong.
Maybe you never DIY, then you can get 8%. Now you DIY, you get 4%.
DIY. No need middleman.
Okay, so I think for Jayden wise, I think like we were anticipating like how much the PSF is going to be. Of course, like based on Lake Garden launch, we're also thinking that it will probably go at like 2003 kind of PSF. I think their starting price at 2.1 per square feet for like their 3-bedder, I think that PSF is still quite attractive if the queue is good. In fact, their 2+ study started off at 2,003 per square feet, so it's high 1.9 million. So I think why my advice against Jayden was more like from a quantum perspective, it's a bit high. So for the same PSF, for the same quantum, I can get RCR 3-bedder. So of course then from a new launch also, so from that context, then I think that because I have better alternatives, so hence, I think there are better choices start from investment play. So that's the reason why.
Understand. Your client wanted to buy two-bedder, is it?
No, they come for the consult and say, oh, maybe I should go for a 2+ study. Because 2+ study was really a quantum play in that sense that we have seen a lot of buyers nowadays because of pricing went up so much, right? So 2+ study become one of the hottest selling bedroom type because it's a good alternative. Like in the sense that we don't need to go to the 1.92 million kind of quantum range. But we can enter into like a property that is still have enough space for family planning.
What is the range of 1-bedder prices at Jayden when you went?
I can't remember 1-bedder. Like, I think like it's like
1516.
1.6 up. I think 1.5 plus 1.6.
Then 2-bedder is about 1.8, 1.9.
Usually I don't really
Because
go
it's
and care
huge,
so
right?
much about like the 1-bedder pricing.
Okay. Anyway, we just came up with like 300 over charts on this new framework that we developed, absorption rate. This is in D22. Of course, we are not saying that Jayden is not a good buy. As what Joanne mentioned, similarly, if I grow up in the West, I live in Jurong, there's no new launches for so many years that's close to MRT. And if I'm very certain I love Jurong, I might consider to buy for stay. Just walk to the MRT is a mixed development. Shopping podium downstairs, and so much transformation going on, right? And of course, I think what we have developed on the back end is that we also want to look at if it's an investment product, then I think we need to come up to a more helicopter view, because if it's an investment perspective, that means anywhere you can buy. Because your objective is firstly, you want ease of exit and appreciation potential. So D22 right now is an OCR region. As of all the available resale listings on property portal as of 31st October, this is the current asking prices and quantity of listings available. So for 3-bedder, there's still 43 listings asking between 1.5 to 2 million. 2-bedders of all the condos in Jurong, 42 listings available between 1 to 1.5 million. So it's just to take note of what is still available in the resale market. And I think the most important thing is, of course, new launches are very attractive. It's a brand new full-on 99 years lease. After 3 years, you can sell. My personal observation is that the entry PSF and the overall quantum, based on this combination, because usually the approach is that PSF is higher, size is slower, so that we keep the quantum a little bit more palatable. So I think maybe for Jayden, if let's say somebody were to enter that a 2+ study 1.9 million, 3 years later, if they want to put it in the resale market, my personal estimation is that the holding period might need to be at least about 5 to 8 years in order to see a significant gain. But if it's for own stay property, I think it's pretty fantastic. This is in D22. I think actually D22, the supply is quite low, is it? Transaction versus...
J-Gateway.
Yeah. I mean, like, for sale listing actually is quite low. So I think there's a lot of demand actually in D22. Yeah, it's just that the overall quantum is just something to note. But I think overall Jayden is a great product. It's just that the holding period might need to be a little bit longer. What do you think, Grayce?
Yeah, I think that at that kind of entry price, so sometimes demand doesn't reflect future demand. So just because something is very popular and taken up very quickly, it doesn't speak about the ease of exit in the future. Yeah, so it could speak about the current what buyers are looking at, the current affordability. But if you are looking at significant appreciation, my personal take on Jayden is that perhaps it might take about 8 to 10 year kind of runway for the surrounding projects to match up to that level of PSF and appreciation.
Yeah. But anyway, I think at this point in time, thanks, Grayce. D22 has a very, very high absorption ratio for all 1, 2, 3. I think a lot of people buy their private properties for own stay. So, yeah.
And there's also quite limited plots of land available in the area now. So, I mean, potentially that could spell good news for the current owners and future sellers also.
Right.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Interest rates. What do you think is going to happen next year? If you all have seen this latest estimation from some of our, we got this like from one of our UOB bankers talking about the internal research. This from UOB Global Economics and Market Research Report. They are forecasting that under this portion here, UOB forecasts that this might be the likelihood of things happening in terms of US Fed rates. There might be a forecast of rate cut towards Q3 of 2024. What do you guys think? How do you think this will impact the local mortgage rates? And of course, in the last episode, we talked about when things like this happen. For example, you see this, right? Then everybody becomes a little bit more FOMO also, like what is happening? Am I losing out? If let's say you're waiting at the sidelines, are you losing out? Is that something that people know that I don't know? So it's like the FOMO effect.
I think people are confused because they will see like, oh, how come got recession talks? Interest rate, hey, how come like you have all these people buying?
Like what are all these people doing here, right? like发生什么事情?
Basically, actually what it shows is that like there are a lot of Singaporeans who actually are sitting on like deployable cash, right? So number one, deployable cash, right? So what it means is that like if you know how to park yourself, if you know how
to buy a 1 beta, like 1.6 million deployable cash,
300 plus, because you need to account for stamp duty.
So at least 350,000 sitting there, right?
Yeah,
cash plus CPF.
Like Joanne, like Joanne.
Deployable cash, how much, Joanne?
I have deployed.
But you can cash out your dividend play very quickly. Right? It's a very liquid one.
So so Singaporeans have a lot of like okay, not say like, I would say this does not represent every single Singaporean. Okay. And of course, recently, like when I go to consults, right, I have seen all range of Singaporeans. So very interesting. Right? You have like people in like just crossover 30s. Income is 15K and upwards one, right? And if you are wondering, hey, who are the people that can afford this kind of exorbitant prices, right? And you have like people who are above 35 and then they have additional deployable cash of $1 million and more. And they are thinking of how to maximize these funds. And because even though they do not represent, like they are not like the 80% of Singaporeans, right? But there is a significant pool of these people with good income, good deployable cash, and they are thinking of how to deploy all this stuff, right? And that's why, it is important to identify, not just like anyhow, like a monkey just throw a random dart to decide what properties to buy. We do our analysis so that we have a higher probability of success based on the kind of timeline of the clients in terms of their seasonality or investment. In terms of interest rate, I think this is already predicted. Third quarter 2022, Fed has already projected that in 2024 we will probably peak in 2023. We will minus off 1% in 2024. We will minus 1% in 2025. And so this is already expected. I think how it will affect interest rate wise is that number one, floating rates will definitely come down next year. Now it's at 4.2%. We have a good likelihood that potentially floating rates can come down to like 3.5 to 3.8 kind of region at the end of the year. These are just like arbitrary numbers. And fixed rates, we are now at 3%. And potentially this could maintain or slightly shave off a little bit to like, your 2.85 kind of region, because banks are projecting that rates will come down and hence they are using fixed rate as a form to lock in some of the clients at the moment. Yeah.
Joanne, what do you think? Thanks, Ro.
I think my key takeaway or advice to clients would be that don't go for a long-term fixed rate package. If you want to, I think 1 year is still okay, but you can, I think, consider going for all the floating packages now, knowing that this is also the projection from the banks itself to, prepare yourself for what's to come next year.
So what Joanne is mentioning is that if let's say you already have certain forecasts and very strong forecasts from banks or research centers that rates are going to go up, the natural instinct of home buyers is that they will lock in rates at a lower rate. So they'll take a 3-year fixed rate at 2% or whatever just to lock in that rate because they know that is anticipated to go up. If you know that it's coming down, you should keep it flexible so that you have flexibility to refinance at a lower rate, right? What do you think might be the impact if this kind of news happened on headlines? How would buyers react? Grayce, what do you think?
Okay. Actually, before I answer the question, right, can I just say that, in my time at PLB, so I first joined as like an editorial writer, right? I can still remember at that time, we've been talking about interest rates like forever. It feels like since the day I entered PLB till now, it's like we're always talking about interest rates. So one of my first few articles are like, what's the relationship between interest rates and property prices? That's like the first few things I ever wrote about. And then slowly we talked about interest rates hike. And then we did a whole study on, if interest rates were to continue to increase, then what will happen to property prices? Then we studied, that table of like, historically with all the 6 interest rate hikes, there's only been once that property prices have fell, right? And then now, and then we reached a phase where slowly we were talking about, how Singapore is very smart to de-link our interest rates in such a close relationship with the US bank rates, right? So now we use the SORA rates instead of the SIBOR rates, which is not so closely related to the US market. So that has given us a little bit, I would say, a little bit of autonomy in terms of interest rate pricings. But then now looking at, how the US interest rates are going to, likely taper and even come down in the second and third quarters of 2024, what that will mean is that, even though we have sort of de-linked from them, to remain competitive, we still have to adjust our interest rates in relation to them. So we cannot, if their interest rates, the US interest rates do fall, then definitely the Singapore market, we will also adjust accordingly. Right. So coming to your question, what will happen if one day we wake up and we see, on the newspaper, the interest rates have fallen. I think if we put ourselves in that, in the shoes of the sellers and the buyers. So firstly, in the shoes of the sellers, interest rates have fallen. I think very naturally, sellers will be thinking, okay, I'm going to have more buyers. Buyers are able to stretch their mortgage more. They're able to afford slightly higher quantum. I want to sell high. Right. Let's say if I'm a buyer, conversely, I think my mindset would be, interest rates have fallen. Okay, I think it's a perfect time to buy now. So this brings us to a conundrum, right? That when good news is released in the market, especially with regard to interest rates, what will usually happen is that sellers and buyers are both enthusiastic about the market, right? So buyers want to buy, sellers want to sell. But this brings us to very similar to what happened during the COVID period, right? That when interest rates were low, prices skyrocketed because buyers had the confidence to buy. They were empowered by the additional, loan that they could take and the low interest rates. And then sellers also facing that amount of demand, of course, they wanted to price their properties at a higher price. Yeah.
Awesome. Great.
I think this piece part is very interesting, right? Because I think overall, maybe viewers, when they look at us, they will think the outcome we seem to be very bullish about the market overall. Yes. And of course, if you've seen a lot of like maybe articles or reports, right, they are starting to have more and more analysts or camps that saying that, actually next year we are transiting to a buyer's market kind of thing. I think like probably that is something that you might want to share with the audience.
Actually, audiences always think we are very bullish. Actually, it's not that we are very bullish. It's just that I think we have like, it's already like, it's your 10 over year, it's my 16, 17 year. It's like we've seen so many cycles. I personally suffered from here. I was trying to time the market here actually. Because when this came down, it took everybody by shock. So actually, my personal property investment journey, I suffered the most at this period because I was trying to wait, but the price just goes up all the way. And I think what we have seen over the years is that we've came to realize after so many research and so many charts that, and also learning from our property investors over the years, right, is that real estate investment is vastly different in the sense that it should be a mid to long-term strategy. It shouldn't be for speculation. And it really rides on inflation. Number 3 is that, of course, it is not volatile. And we have also talked about at the start of this episode is that where Singapore is so different. And I just love the fact that we have 16 rounds of cooling measures, because if we were to remove any cooling measures, or maybe let's just take out 10 cooling measures, I think we'll go back to a very speculative market. So I think it is the very fact that the cooling measures allowing the real estate investment journey to be more stable is actually better over the mid to long run. So I think the biggest significant impact in Singapore is that cooling measures plays the largest role. Without the cooling measures, we'll go back to this very volatile. Actually, one of my family member suffered this period because a property was purchased at the actually
Asian
at the peak
financial
Asian
crisis,
financial crisis. When TOP, right, and one of my family member took hold of the keys here. I was not in the real estate market, but I was still very young. I was still studying in JC here. Okay.
Oh,
So
once upon a time when Melvin
so
was still young.
this was a very shocking thing for when I heard it, is that, I buy property, I follow my friends, then when I get the key, right, I lost 300,000. So when I heard it that time, I was very shocked. It's like, wow, real estate is so volatile. It's like,
And 300k at that time is like
it's a lot.
huge
It's
amounts
huge.
of money.
It's like
Like 1 million.
the property was bought at 900 over thousand.
Yeah.
When the key was collected, it was 600 over thousand. And the bank called a lot of people for margin call because that time, most property buyers take 90% loan. So actually, this was a period that I think a lot of people suffered because then here you got September 11. Then after that, there was a period
Dot-com
of
bubble.
dot-com bubble. Then here was the Lehman Brothers crisis. So and there was no cooling measures here. This entire season was armed with cooling measures and flush with quantitative easing. So I think we are really in a very different season. It's not that we are very bullish. It's just that we like to speak what we have researched and what we think is the likelihood of things that might be packed with our opinions, advice, and experience and research. Okay,
Yeah.
but anyway,
Yeah.
I think a lot of audiences that has followed us over the last 5 and 6 years, they have, of course, I wouldn't say attain. They have saw appreciation in their assets that they acquire. We don't like to speak up or speak down the market. We just like to really talk about what we've researched on. Yes, Grayce?
Yeah. I think 2 pointers, right? The first thing is that when we are looking at news or when we're looking at charts, we just, I think it's important for us to speak it as it is. Like, even if the comments say that we are very bullish, it doesn't, like, we can't just try to be more negative or try to, talk down the market. We just speak it as it is. But the fundamental sharing, right? Even when we look at interest rates and all that, I think we always go back to the fact that we don't want to time the market. Yeah. So let's say, it's not about timing the market. We share about the different, economic forces and news that is affecting the market. But most importantly, the sharing also helps us identify what to buy. Yeah, it's not really about let's say we are waiting for a specific global incident to happen to affect. I think, and that leads to the second point, right? That if we were to look at the Singapore market, actually, it's a very, very unique market where the housing prices are so closely tied to policies and political, national policies, not really global macro economic forces. So definitely, yes, I think the global forces, how the global forces definitely lead to shaping of buyers' mindsets and sentiments. But if you are looking at actual pricing, I would say it has a closer relationship to a lot of the policies and cooling measures. Those have a big impact on prices actually. Yeah.
Because we are our own market, high population, and we are always generating public housing that has a good sense of appreciation, and that there is that spill over to the private property market. Of course, I think most importantly is that we're trying to, of course, in the next 1 year and 2 years, we are not looking at this kind of 8%, 10% kind of property price that increase that we saw over the last 2 years. We'll probably go back down to somewhere that is that 4% region or even lesser. But because where we are focusing on it, because in Singapore, we are not buying the market. So the index to me does not represent price direction, but to me, it represents the heartbeat of emotions of the market. So when it is going up, people want to buy. When it's coming down, people don't want to buy, right? So generally wise, we have also have a lot of case studies that with the right selection, whether the market is going up, we see people who make losses in their property. When the market is coming down, we also see case studies where people profited from their property. So it's all about having the right selection criteria, buying something that has ease of exit, buying the right kind of product. And everybody knows, I think everybody knows how to choose the correct product. In that sense that we know what are good attributes. But something that is often left out is that pricing correct for this product type at that current season. And this is where most people get it wrong. And that's the reason why they cannot understand why some of the good products are not appreciating and some of the seemingly lousy, bad location products are appreciating much more than some of the very good kind of locations.
Yeah, I think we have not shown this on NOTG before. I mean, there are, we always say that in our webinars, it's not about new launch or resale, right? It's about the project and the project characteristics as well as the potential characteristics. So for example, new launches that has done well, example. Resale that has done well, example. But there are also freehold new launches that has depreciated over the last 10 years. Even though the market was generally going up over the last 6 years since 2019, right? But this didn't ride on because from 2019 to 2023, it actually went out even more. This is like D19 plateaued over the last 8 years. D11 stagnant over the last 9 years. So we are into, I would say, identification of the right kind of projects. Yeah, and not like bullish on the market as a whole, because out of the total is 2,000 plus.
About
how do you know what I was going to say?
About 3,000 projects.
3,000 projects.
We did a study.
You know, I was going to say how many projects already. Okay.
Of course.
All of the 3,000 over projects, right? There are winners and of course there are certain losers. Okay. Joanne, I want to ask you something, right? But before that, maybe let me pose a question to everybody. Actually, I feel that our Singapore system is really fantastic. Firstly, it solves the issue that, okay, because in a lot of countries, there's no public housing. That's why a lot of countries come to Singapore to really learn from HDB how to do this, right? And the HDBs are so well built and nice and it's always innovating. So actually in like US, right, they inject and expand the money supply through buying up debts from bank and of course bonds and all this kind of stuff, right? Actually in Singapore, how do you think, of course Singapore money supply is also expanded because everybody takes US as a global currency, but actually in Singapore, if you look at the number one wealth creator, the injection of capital into the market is actually through HDB, right? Because it injects grants and subsidized housing. You just need to commit your 10, 11 years to own the BTO. Take the grant, own it for 5 years, the money appears in your CPF already. So actually, through CPF and HDB, that's a wealth injector, right?
Yeah. And it's very smart. They inject wealth, but yet they limit the use of it because the grants that they, sort of release into the public via your CPF OA, it can only be used for a certain number of usage. It's not like you can cash out easily to go and invest or to, go on holiday and all that. I think the government is very smart and prudent in that. Yes, they want to help citizens to grow their wealth through their first step into real estate, but yet they also limit the usage to more prudent usages, and it's more for long-term lifestyle needs as well.
So Joanne pointed out a very good point. She mentioned the fact that the usage of that grants and subsidy injection into your BTO and resale, right, is limited into your CPF. And what is the number one usage of CPF funds?
Property.
Housing.
And thus, it will definitely be re-injected into other properties or your next upgraded properties. And thus, it's very tough for our real estate market to come down because there's injection of funds like every year into the BTO market, right? And of course, I think you also brought a very good point, is that it solves the social issue.
Yep.
It gives everybody a hope and dream that definitely you have a high chance of owning your own property, right? And then you can sit on that injection of subsidized funds into your CPF account. Of course, there's certain parameters, get married and stuff like that, right? Yeah. What do you guys think?
I think those are very, very good points. So I think generally we're not saying that the property price index will never come down. There might be certain like black swan events, but that will take something very, I would say, like unique to really see like a significant shave off in regards to the price index, because the cooling measure, basically now there are strong players, right? And with strong players means that they do not have to fire sale their property. You don't have a high volume of them. And hence, when you don't have a high volume of them, right, you are unable to see lower and lower transaction price that collectively happens in a very short amount of time that create that very strong fear. Of course, there could be certain policies or market sentiments that could result in a potential share, because it cannot be every quarter is going up right? So I think like that is perfectly fine. So like what we mentioned previously is that like the money is cycling with public housing, CPF, incentivize that you can pump into the property market, and hence it only makes sense to just participate within like a prudent kind of limit. We also believe in the stocks. Of course, like, we believe in stocks, we believe in crypto. I think it's more about the asset allocation depending on how comfortable you are and how good you are in a different kind of asset classes. Then you will see what's the percentage to allocate.
I only
Stocks are
believe in
good also.
Bitcoin.
You also buy quite a lot of like participate in the stock market also.
I sold everything already.
Okay, timer. Time the market. But actually I also sold off all my stock market
I
holdings.
sold off all
this
my
year.
stocks already. Yeah.
But I'm trying to get in again.
Okay. I put everything into Bitcoin.
Bitcoin performed quite well recently. Good, congratulations.
Yeah,
Can
thank
buy
you.
another house after you
No.
you keep returning out, right? As in, okay. So like one of the reasons is because like people will return out when they have make money in riskier assets. Then you will start to shift over to less kind of like volatility assets. So that's why you see like when 2020 stock market bull run, next year 2021 it spill off to the real estate market because the flow of funds. Yeah.
Thanks. Take note, it's not financial advice. Also a disclaimer. Okay.
Yeah, we're
Grayce,
talking about property side.
anything to share?
I think two things came to my head when I think Joan and Rong were sharing. First thing is that also I think it's the idea of whether it's also your primary residence. Yeah, I think when it's your primary residence that we also don't want to take as big a gamble with it. I think but fundamentally, even whether it's a primary residence or an investment property, both investment property, you will have a greater leeway, I think, to let's say decide whether you want to invest it in stocks or whatever other assets before looking at a secondary property, right? But let's say if it's your primary residence, then the advice that we have shared, I think, would be more salient. Yeah, that's the first. Second thing.
What does salient mean?
More sane, more safe, like more.
No.
What does salient mean?
Like
More prudent.
like
Apparent or obvious.
yeah.
Cheap.
Very
Like
cheap.
the
Can we use
the,
simple
like,
vocabulary that we can understand? Or I can understand.
More solid or what?
No, like
Noticeable or important.
like a more obvious, more
apparent.
like,
Okay. Thanks.
important,
Thanks for the new
yeah.
vocab.
Yeah.
I forget what's my second point.
Oh, sorry.
I forgot what's
We've
my
knocked
second
off the
point.
points off her head. It's okay, we'll come back.
What was the question?
There was no question. I mean, like the good points by Joanne on CPF, like why the prices are going up because we are public
Oh,
housing,
okay.
CPF.
The second thought that I had is that, fundamentally, I agree, right, that the base of our real estate market is the HDB market. So, over 75% of, ownership in terms of property is in HDB. So, traditionally, that has been the base, and that has also been the, key reason, the grants being injected has been the key reason for asset progression. I think that is still true in today's market in terms of it being the foundation, but I disagree that it will still be the cause or the motivating push or the enabler for asset progression. Yeah, so I think yes, number one, CPF funds being injected into the housing market will still form the base of home ownership in Singapore, definitely, for 75% of homeowners, right? 75% is made up of HDB owners. But I think that the narrative of HDBs being the cause or the reason for asset progression, I think that will be less and less moving forward. Yeah.
Because of all the new policies and everything, right?
Because of the policies, also if you look at, HDBs now, let's say the different classifications, if you are really looking to buy a so-called prime HDB and earn off your BTO, that's not going to be possible because of, the resale levies. And also in terms of the income ceiling, things like that, there's a cap for your future buyer on what they can afford, right? That's first. And then second thing is also the price movement of the private non-landed and also of course the landed properties. I think the gap will get bigger and bigger, so that the whatever appreciation or whatever appreciation you're sitting on from your HDBs, I think it cannot funnel you to buy a condo or a landed.
Yeah,
moving
because of the
forward.
price widening gap
Yes.
as well.
Actually, in the
Yeah.
next 10 years, you're secure on. Because we have been launching BTOs, right? We still, even if we stop now, we have 10 years of BTOs. Every year, you have about 10,000 units at MOP. And these are people that are young, in their 30s, and they have strong mobility, and we have good appreciation. So they will set a new record pricing for public housing and then elevate the resale pricing in the area as well. So it's always a policy. So even if now we stop, yes, we understand that there is that the what plus prime kind of BTOs. But I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, we still have at least the next 3-4 years, right? This appreciation cycle from the BTO will still can funnel into the private property market.
Definitely, I think the effects won't be seen so soon. Yeah, it's at least a good 10 to 14 years, right? Until the first batch, until we really see the effects of the measures that were announced during our National Day rally.
You'll retire by then already.
Yes, I will.
Maybe 15 years later, you will retire, Grayce.
How old will you be 15 years time?
You'll be in a 40s
15
already.
years. Yeah, I'll be 40.
Premium 40.
I'll still be younger than you are now.
41.
I think 41.
Yeah, going to heaven, right?
Too soon.
Okay, last topic of the day. So because we got a dinner to go.
Only you.
But no hairy crab. No hua xie.
It's an appreciation
you wanna
dinner
join?
for the Ken event. It's,
Okay, the next time we
Grayce
go
and
eat crab,
Cephas is
bring
going,
you.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Cephas is also eagerly waiting. That's why I don't want to eat so much nugget.
Hey, can I help to inform them we'll be late? We're still at NOTG. Okay, thanks. Okay, last part that we want to talk about will be asking rents falling in Q3 by Property Guru. I think Property Guru has the best data, largest portal in Singapore, and I think they'll be able to track the asking prices trending. So it is reported that Q3 asking price is like falling. And of course, on the ground, a lot of our consultants are also saying that it takes longer to find a tenant now. What are your sentiments, Joanne, on rental rates on the ground?
I think it is just a sign of how the demand is in the market, and that the demand just can't catch up with the increase in supply, because in the recent 2 quarters there have also been an influx in terms of the supply. So a lot of newly TOP condos, a lot more options for tenants these days. And then when a lot of homeowners who used to be tenants, now their projects are being built, completed, they move in, then there's a lot more vacancy, and occupancy rate has also fallen. So I think this speaks of the demand. I think it's true on the ground. I think last year itself, we see that once you put out a rental listing, within 1 or 2 weekends, it will be leased off very, very fast. Within the first weekend, you can have like 5-6 groups coming.
Bidding some more.
Correct. And then just within that couple of days, it's, secured and all that. But these days, what we're seeing in the market is that even after putting up the listing for a couple of weeks, the enquiries and the interest generally is slower. Also because the options are there for tenants itself. So, which is also why I think then as a result of a spillover effect, the asking rents have also fallen, because especially for units that are already vacant, I don't think landlords would want to continue keeping the unit vacant. They will be more realistic in terms of the pricing. And that's why you see that in terms of the rent, in terms of pricing, it has also sort of stabilized during this quarter. Yeah.
I think especially if the property is for rental, like a dividend
Pure
play
rental.
investment, right? It's good to calculate that. For example, let's say if you're asking for $9,000, but you have seen transactions happening at maybe, okay, I wouldn't say like transactions happening, but you got offers in at maybe about 8,000. And you got multiple offers at about 8,000, but you're just thinking, hey, I really want to fight for 9,000. I think a good gauge is to calculate that difference in sort of like what the market is paying and personal expectation as a landlord. $1,000 times 12 is about $12,000 difference. But technically, if let's say you lose 2 months of this potential $8,000 rental, that's a loss of 16,000 in terms of vacancy rate. And then use that as a gauge to balance out the expectation as a landlord, as an investor. So maybe give yourself a cut-off point. Okay, max is I leave your vehicle for 2 months, then I will take already. Or
Yeah.
maybe max is I leave your vehicle for 1.5 months, I will take. So a good gauge like. But of course, there's also key strategies like if your property just TOP'd, usually there's a different strategy that some landlords that are more veteran and experienced, they want to be the first to exit. They want to be the first landlord to be tenanted one. Then but they might only sign 1 year. Then after 1 year, once everybody stabilizes, they will renew at a higher rate or find a new tenant. So different strategies. Yeah. What do you guys think about the rental market?
Actually, like,
We're laughing.
fine. You wanna say it?
No, you say.
Actually, I was like surprised that we're still talking about rent because I thought it was like old news that rental demand has like tapered, across the whole of this year, right? Like there was a lot of news in the market that rents were like sky high. And then, I mean, I was surprised when I saw like rental as one of the agendas to talk about today because I thought that it was pretty apparent that rent has been slowing down. This rental, phenomenon is actually it's like the perfect marriage of understanding the real estate market in terms of like charts and numbers and supply and demand, but also in terms of personal aspirations and what is the narrative in the market, right? So I think at the COVID period, rentals were at a high also because of softer aspects, right? Like not just the very numerical numbers part, but softer aspects of people wanting their own space, of a lot of people working from home, needing that new independence and all that, right? Coupled with, I think now why the rental prices are falling is also because there were 38 TOP projects this year. Right, so the TOP projects, of course, introduce a lot more supply in many different areas of Singapore. So, it's both, right? The fact that now we have eased out of, I think we have eased out of COVID. I think the softer aspect, and then in terms of like the numbers, the statistics wise, that 38 TOP projects in this year, a lot more new supply flushed into the market in terms of rental. So the news article, I think it's not actually talking about rental rates dropping. There has been like something that has been happening already. It's talking about owners now or landlords becoming more realistic and recognizing that actually maybe it might be more beneficial to just rent out at a more realistic pricing rather than hold out and wait at the old rental prices. Yeah.
I'm just laughing because I love how news always have all these like clickbaity kind of titles, right? It's like asking rents coming down. So if let's say today I'm just
Not
glancing,
transacted rents.
I'm glancing through the head. I was like, then I will lock it in my head. Hey, rentals is coming down, so the property market price is going to come down. But then it's asking rent. It's not transacted rents, right? So of course there are 19,000 TOP projects as a owner, you see that prices are going up, right? And then every owner wants to try for a new record pricing as compared to the last building. So all these owners come in and then they try, like now it's like 6,000 plus for 3-bedder brand new. We try 7,000. Then try it, then you realize that of course the demand is not there. Then of course you need to adjust the asking price downwards, right? So what's new about asking price coming downwards? So I think it is just like so interesting. All these clickbaity titles. I have like clients, like buyers that search for the listing and send me, you see, got this news article saying the property prices coming down. Then I have another 2 chats that say Jayden 88% launched 2004 PSF for OCR. I have Wharton Estate 60% sold $3,300 median PSF. So is the market good or bad? Depends on your flip of the coin, right?
That's
so interesting.
That's where the term clickbait came from.
Yeah.
Yeah, your titles need to be clickbait.
Yeah, I mean that's how the revenue is being generated, right? We need views, so we need advertisement. So yeah. Sell on news, don't buy on news.
Sell on news, don't buy on news. So
yeah, basically, news is always passé, man. You cannot control, right? So when the news are all very positive, everybody are in the euphoria to want to purchase, then it's time for you to sell. You buy on bad news, right? So you'll sell on good news.
Actually, overall for the media space, negative news always get more viewership. Yeah, so people always like to look at negativity, right? So negativity triumphs in the media space. So of course, I think what Rong is saying is that have your own discernment in terms of title versus the meat. So of course, a lot of articles when you look at title, right? But you go and read in depth. Actually, it's a very different thing. It could be just on one segment and one phenomenon only. So, for example, I still remember there was one banter episode we did on Continuum. There was an article saying that the transacted one was like $1,000 difference from the freehold near continuum. But if you read, right, it's really about just comparison with one boutique project. It doesn't represent the entire D15 district. So I think have your own level of discernment when you read. So anyway, thank you for joining us on this NOTG banter. We had fun with you guys. So join us on the next few episodes. And of course, we look forward to a Merry Christmas with everybody. Thanks for following PropertyLimBrothers and NOTG. Take care.
Bye.
Wow.
Wait.
Hey, I gotta say the presentation today is good, man.
Hey, this is like a base, right? Then with the 爆炸果. Who presented this? It's awesome. That kind of stroke of smart artist.